Yeah. Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to be back for this session of Imaging the Eye. As you know, we've had a couple of sessions before, and imaging has become a separate subspecialty that's touching every other subspecialty in ophthalmology. And it's almost as if we are not able to practice ophthalmology without imaging. So today we're delighted to introduce Dr. Mangat Dogra, who will be chairing the session with us. And Dr. Mangat Dogra, as you know, is a renowned retina specialist and former chairman and professor at Postgraduate Institute, Chandigarh, and he has a very significant contribution in Indian ophthalmology to the entire retina portfolio. And we also know him to have done exceptional work in spearheading the concepts of retinopathy of prematurity. And we thank you very much, Dr. Mangat Dogra, for being with us today and chairing this session. And may I now invite Dr. Mangat Dogra to introduce Dr. Rajiv Raman, who is our distinguished speaker of the day. Dr. Mangat.
Friends, at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Vinay Nangia, Dr. Prabhat, and Dr. Sarang here for giving me this opportunity to be in this important webinar today. And I appreciate their efforts as far as the education part goes. I think that is what we need to do today more, and that is what is something should be done by most institutions. And I'm so happy that we have today Dr. Rajiv Raman with us from Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai. I think he needs no introduction to anybody, so I need not even formally introduce him. The tremendous amount of work which he has done, especially, I think I was so impressed when they did that Ascend Dreams, and so much of data came first time in the country. As far as the diabetes is a biggest challenge facing everybody, and then of course in many spheres. But that is something I think which is amazing. And recently, he is the one who has almost spearheaded this artificial intelligence, and we'll get so much to in future, and many things they'll be done in a different way, the way we are doing today. And Rajiv is a wonderful human being. I've been very fortunate knowing him for many years, and it's always such a pleasure interacting on any of the subjects with him and getting sometimes very good pearls here and there. And I once again thank Vinay and everybody for this opportunity. And I request Rajiv, he's going to talk to us on a very important subject of OCT angiography in age-related macular degeneration. I think he's going to really stir that hornet's nest, because I think this is one area where maybe why this subject was chosen, maybe after we'll discuss that later. But welcome, Rajiv, and please, now it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Dr. Vinay, Prabhat, Sarang, for such a nice concept of having these meetings. And in the series of these meetings, today I'll be talking about can OCTA negate the need for FA in neovascular AMD management? So as far as diagnostics are concerned, how OCT and OCTA stands as of now. So the structural OCT, the B scans are something which we cannot manage AMD today, because without this, everything right from diagnosis, treatment, monitoring of treatment, the criteria for retreatment, all are based on structural OCT. And now we have OCTA, which is more today as an adjuvant in management. So this is the gist of the whole talk. So we have both OCT and OCTA, which are important, and OCTA today is not something which you can use alone in managing neovascular AMD. Basically, these two tools, we use it for diagnosis of neovascular lesions and for guiding treatment or a retreatment. And diagnosis meaning that we want to classify what type of a neovascular lesion is it, can we identify some precursor lesions by that, and can we predict the visual prognosis. Historically, the dye-based angiograms have been the gold standard as far as diagnosis of choroidal neovascular membrane is concerned. Fluorescein, and later on, we also knew that indocyanine green, especially these occult membranes, PCV, does play a very important role. And traditionally, we have been classifying on OCT the choroidal neovascular membranes into type 1, type 2. Type 1 are the choroidal neovascular membranes beneath the retinal pigment epithelium, and on angiogram it is either a fibrovascular PED where you get a speckled hyperfluorescence in the late stages, or a late leakage of undetermined source where initially you don't see much leakage and later phases of angiogram you see of dye and a leakage, or a type 2 CNVM, which is above the retinal pigment epithelium, more demarcated membrane, classically showing the lacy pattern of hyperfluorescence and a late leakage, which has been described. And why it is important today in this era of anti-VEGF to classify these, because these type 1 CNVMs usually require more injections. However, the prognosis of these are better as compared to type 2. Visual prognosis type 2 may not be as good as type 1, but they need less injections. So it is important as far as whenever you are managing these cases to know what type of membrane you are dealing with. And as I had told you, this type 1 occult membrane can be late leakage of undetermined source, or it can be a fibrovascular PED. There have been attempts to try to look at, can we look into these two angiographic occult CNVM, can we classify based on OCT? And there is a good work by Dr. Srinivas Sadda where he tried looking at these PEDs which have these hyperreflective material below it and a larger PEDs. These are actually fibrovascular PEDs, and the more shallower ones, which is also nowadays called as the SIRE, the shallow irregular retinal pigment epithelial elevation, or a double layer sign, is actually the late leakage of undetermined source. You can get spectrum of PEDs in a neovascular AMD, and if you get a medium homogeneous reflectivity, it's usually a drucinoid PED. The second one is low homogeneous reflectivity beneath the PED is a serous PED. And when you get a low but a heterogeneous, you have some hyperreflective echoes within the PED, that's a fibrovascular PED. So these are the spectrum of PED you get in a neovascular AMD. And Dr. Januzzi described another variety of CNVM called as type 3 CNVM, where there is intraretinal neovascularization, which gradually grows beneath, breaks the Brooks membrane, and then goes in the choroidal space, causing all the lesions. That is a type 3 CNVM. And actually on OCT also you see very typical signs. So you do expect that because the neovascularization started in the retina, you will have definitely a cystoid macular edema. So you see the cystoid macular edema. The intraretinal hyperreflective foci, which you can see here, this is again very typical due to the RP migration. You get in a RAP lesion, and you see the retina sinking into the PED. So you can see this PED and the retina sinking into it. That's again a feature. So if you get these signs, typically you should suspect that it's a RAP lesion or a type 3 choroidal neovascular membrane. So people have tried looking at what is the diagnostic accuracy of a OCT in detecting CNVM, and it's close to 100%. So sensitivity is very good. So this means that can we just manage with OCT? Why we need OCT-A or any other modality? The reason is the specificity. The specificity of OCT is 80%, and we definitely want a little more or a better diagnostic specificity. And that's the reason many other diagnostic modalities people started exploring. And I'll just give some example for it. So this is basically a subretinal hyperreflective material. You can see that hyperreflective material beneath in the subretinal space. Is it a type 2 CNVM? Yes, it is a type 2 in this case, but is it always a type 2 CNVM? Not necessary. So you can see this case where you have a hyperreflective material, but it's a scar, or a hyperreflective material which is not a CNVM at all. It's a vitiliform lesion, or a hyperreflective material which you can see here is actually a subretinal blood. So not all hyperreflective material which is subretinal is a CNVM, and that gives the reason why we need to, that's the reason why the specificity is low. And how we can increase the specificity? So previous attempts have been by trying to use the NFAS OCT or NFAS views of OCT, and there are some literature which shows that even the polyps in a case of PCV and the BVN can well be seen. These are not the left two and the right one are not the OCTA images, but just the NFAS OCT. So even on NFAS OCT, you can detect the network of vessels. And this was evidence which tried at the specificity and sensitivity of NFAS. So you can see the specificity definitely improves much better than a structural OCT. It's about 86%. However, it is not that sensitive to pick up all the lesions which plain OCT can pick up. Its sensitivity is only 30%. So actually means that if you really want to improve the specificity of diagnosis, if you can visualize the network of vessels, you can really improve it, and that's what OCTA does. So in OCTA, you can see these network of vessels. So definitely it increases the specificity of just a structural OCT in diagnosing choroidal neovascular membrane. So this is a case, if you look at, there is a type 1 membrane, a fibrovascular PED. Above that, you can also see a hyperreflective material, or a SHREM, or people may call it as a mixed membrane at one time, which has both classic and occult component. And these are the angiograms. Do a OCTA, you can make out this network of vessels. So both in type 1 as well as type 2, nowadays people call it as MNV rather than calling it macular neovascularization. The only reason being that because type 3 starts from the retina, it is not choroidal to start with. It's better to call it as MNV. So both type 1 and type 2 MNV, if you look at the OCTA features, type 1 are larger, they are less demarcated than type 2, and type 2 are more compact, smaller, well demarcated. And if you look at the flow indices on your OCT, you will see higher flow indices in larger and the type 2 CNVMs. So this is a case of a type 1 CNVM, and you can see very clearly a fibrovascular PD. You can see the fluid, and you can see on OCTA a nice network of vessel. Another case where you see fluid, you can see intraretinal fluid, that larger, the zoomed structural OCT. So this is active type 1 membrane, and you can make out on the OCTA the network of vessels again. It can also identify, as I told, the type 2 membrane pretty nicely, more compact, smaller vessels, which you can see on OCTA in a type 2 MNV. Another case of a type 2 CNVM, you can see it's partly scarring, and you can see these vessels which are more elongated, but I'll come to that in the later slides. Active CNVM also on a OCTA. This is a RAP lesion. As I told you, on structural OCT, you see CME, you see cystic spaces in the retina, you can see those hyperreflective dots, and the retina dipping into the PED. All the three features you see here, that's a type 3 CNVM, and you can even make out these in the superficial retinal layers, the flow, which is very much indicative of type 3 CNVM. It can also be used to diagnose or identify PCV. We had last talk by Dr. Parveen, where very nicely she had shown that it can be used. Yes, because these are low flow lesions, you may not pick up the polyps, but branching vascular network can very well be demarcated on a OCTA. Yes, the swept source OCTA is a little better modality because it can pick up these lesions to a better extent. There's a small video. Okay, video is not playing. Okay, that's a video showing a PCV with a polyp. So definitely, as I told you, the OCTA can help us diagnose the type of CNVM, and definitely OCT helps us. There are some indications where definitely OCTA makes a difference. One of the indication is when the dye-based angiogram is difficult to interpret. Especially you can see this is the multicolor image where you see a lot of RP alterations. And in presence of these RP alterations, difficult to interpret even the angiogram because there will be some window defects and there will be a mild leak which you can sometimes miss these CNVMs. And you can see the structural OCT. You can make out these hyperreflective dots, minimum fluid, not really picking up a good vascular or a good CNVM here. However, you do a OCTA, you can make out a CNVM there. So it can detect CNVM in presence of a diffuse RP alterations. So this is one of the indication where OCTA definitely helps us in our clinical management. Another case of a CSR having diffuse RP alteration, minimum fluid, and on OCTA you can make out a membrane. Again, some newer indications because people started looking at these shallow pigment epithelial detachments, and sometimes you see a membrane there. So Dr. Phil Rosenfield gave the term non-exudative CNV in a neovascular AMD. So sometimes you may get that where you don't have any other features of fluid, no signs of activity, and these are not the ones which you need to treat. However, very elegantly, the same group also tried following this up for a longer time. And what they found that these subclinical MNVs, they called it as subclinical MNV, if you follow for a year, nearly 1 in 5 will develop exudation. However, if you don't have these type of lesions, the risk of developing CNVM or exudation is only about 3.6% in this population. Our population, it is about less than 2%. So it is really less. So if you see these type of a shallow PEDs, no fluid, no, on a OCTA, you find a network there. We label it as a subclinical MNV. Make it sure that you follow them up more closely in the first year. They may develop exudation in a future date. Coming to the next part of the talk, as I told you, it can be used for diagnosing AMDs or neovascular lesion. It also helps us guiding treatment or retreatment. So this is actually a right eye choroidal neovascular membrane, had 4 injections of Eylea, and you can see so well response. There is no signs of exudation on OCT. Do a OCTA, you can still see a thin a network of fluid. Is this actually a sign of activity? So that's a big question, and now people are trying to look at various OCTA features of activity. And these are a couple of them, looking at capillary tufts at the lesion margin, the smaller vessel calibers, anastomotic loops at the end, peripheral arcades, and every month you see there will be 1 or 2 new publication coming out with people trying to look at, can we find some biomarkers for activity in a OCTA. So these smaller caliber vessels which you see on the left side are the active vessels, and if you see longer big caliber longer vessels, these are inactive vessels. So this is one of the things which you can look at. It's not one alone, you need to look at multiple other things. If you see the peripheral arcade, the vessels which are looping between each other, that's a sign of activity. And when you see what is called as a dead tree phenomena, the vessels are just straightened out, these are inactive. When there is a peripheral perilesional halo, you can see that hypo area which is surrounding the choroidal neovascular network, that is an active membrane. It's usually because of these fluid pockets you get this perilesional halo. Comparison to a steady signal intensity at the border, you cannot really see this hypo thing. That's more of an inactive lesion. And there are groups who are trying to look at some of the quantitative metrics like the vessel length or a branching index, what they call as a fractal analysis, looking at vessel density. But again, these are all more in academic interest. Today, none of them are actually in our clinical practice. However, there is a very dynamic changes which happen once we inject the anti-VEGF. So you can see this is before treatment, and 24 hours after treatment, you see the membrane has totally changed. You actually see 7 days, it is nearly disappeared. So there are dynamic changes which are seen not only with first injection, but even subsequent injections after anti-VEGF. Now we'll just go through a couple of them and try to see whether they are active or not. So you see here, they are longer vessels, but there is a perilesional halo, seems to be active. These are more like what is described as a dead tree, but you see a perilesional. So it's not like each OCTA will have only one type of feature. You need to look at multiple of these parameters and then try to say the last one seems to be a more inactive membrane. So this is before anti-VEGF, and after anti-VEGF you can see how the vessel density and the other things are changing. So the good thing is these OCTA machines also gives us a structural OCT. It's always better to correlate with them. So in this case, you can see a subretinal fluid. Part of the membrane seems to be scarred, the left part of it where you see elongated vessels. The other part of the network seems to be still active. Again, partially active choroidal neovascular membrane. This is also, you can see part of that is scarring and part of this is still active. The similar type of lesion here too, you can see a type 2 membrane. You can see the cystic spaces, can even make out a bit of SRF. Part of them you can see these longer vessels, and the left part of the one is still an active network. There are also work by some of the groups which tried looking at, can we predict reaccumulation? So many a times on our follow-up, when we see there is no fluid at all and you do OCTA, you see this activity and this network, and if you can classify this active or inactive, can we predict based on that there may be a fluid which may come? And this was one of the study which tried looking at this, and this did find that regrowth of a CNVM may actually precede the reaccumulation of fluid, because today we treat based on presence or absence of fluid. So it's important on each follow-up visits to do OCTA and try looking at these. So this was actually one of the work which I'm involved with Dr. Shobha Shivprasad, her group in UK. They tried looking at a retrospective analysis of OCT and OCTA, trying to look at, again, looking at correlating activity in terms of sub and intraretinal fluid and the OCTA network, the vascular network. They looked into ill-defined versus well-defined. Also looked at other parameters like presence of these fine loops, presence of a core trunk, a halo, and presence of new loops which were not there in the previous visits. So this is a case you don't have any fluid. You can make out the lesions, and here you can see the new fluid which has developed in the same case, and you can see there is presence of these new loops which are formed. Another example where it didn't have fluid and on follow-up it developed fluid. These new loops, the peripheral loops, were present on the OCTA. And we tried analyzing these images to look at which can be predictive of how can you correlate the fluid and the patterns on the OCTA. And what we found that one of the best indicator which came statistically significant was these new loops at the periphery. So if you on a follow-up you are seeing these new loops, these are predictive of activity. However, in long-standing disease, OCTA is not that, you may not get much information because these vascular trees tend to remain for a very long time. Especially there comes the role of your structural OCT, especially in cases of scar, fibrosis. You can see these outer retinal tubulations, the degenerative cysts, or a multi-layer PED. These are certain features where again structural OCT probably is much better as compared to OCTA. So to conclude, I will just go through some of the guide on taking a OCTA and how to look for these lesions in neovascular AMD. So first thing, you should make sure that you are looking at a right spot. Many a times, the photographer should scan the region of interest, and that becomes more important in PCV or eccentric lesions, larger lesions. 3x3 scans usually give a good resolution, and it may not be always the center. You may be maybe a little off center, and always it is better to look at the B scan to orient where these membranes are. Then you should look at the ANFAS OCT images on all superficial, deep, the outer, the choroidal, choriocapillaries, all the layers to see for anomalies. And one of the things, you definitely want to make sure that you want to avoid false positives. These are the projection artifacts which you see in geographic atrophy or any atrophy present in that, or you also don't want to miss any CNVMs. So in case of a geographic atrophy, though there is no CNVM, there is a shadow of these superficial vascular networks, which gives rise to a pattern or the network which is actually not there. There's another case where there is just a atrophy, there is no membrane, but you can see the projection artifact on this choriocapillary slab where you can see this network of vessels. And many of the OCTA machines have this option of projection. So on the right side, you can see projection artifacts. You can make it on or off. Based on that, you can reduce the projection artifacts. And then you should look for the segmentation lines. So you can make out here the segmentation lines are not complete. It's partly taking, and you cannot delineate the full membrane. A little better segmentation, you started making out these vessels, but still it is not the right segmentation of the neovascular complex. It's little more better, and now you can see when very nicely you have segmented the choroidal neovascular membrane. You can see the whole network. Again, look at something which is causing shadowing. Many times it is again the same principle. So based on the shadowing, you can actually miss a CNVM below it. So always look at the structural B scan to make out whether there is any shadowing present or not. It's always good to look at these flow maps. You can see this red color marks which are seen on the right one. This indicates there is a flow present in these membranes. The left one doesn't show these flow maps. It's good idea to look at video. There is some function going on outside. I don't know, in this COVID time. I don't know whether this the membrane, it is not playing, but basically what it shows is that when you look at the video, definitely this segmentation artifact, chances of having that, the error is very less, because you'll go through. I'll just go through this. So video is not flowing. I don't know why, but when you go through that, you will not miss any of the segmentation error would be minimized. So in summary, how to get a good OCTA in AMD? Make sure you are looking at the right spot. Look at the ANFAS OCTA image. Look at the segmentation lines, and look at ANFAS intensity image, because that gives you idea about these artifacts. If there is some masking or shadowing which is present, look at the flow maps, and always look at the video to avoid any segmentation artifact. So in summary, OCTA may enhance the specificity of structural OCT. It may obviate the need of FA in many of the cases, may be helpful in cases where FFA is difficult to interpret, as I told, in presence of marked RP alterations. And from OCTA, we can get a clue of the activity, but still the structural OCT remains the mainstay in managing neovascular AMD. OCTA is an adjunct in its management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv, for excellent talk. I think you covered all aspects. That includes right from the way we are looking at this particular modality today, whether it is knowing about these membranes, the way they are seen. You have shown so elegantly at different level, and also the importance of structural OCT along with it, which is so important. And the basic topic, which in fact I do feel, I think we'll have to have a little discussion on that. That I think in today's time, we hardly tend to do fundus fluorescein angiography for neovascular AMD. It has come down remarkably, I must say, and with OCTA, it has come down further. Maybe if we have with us ICG, that may be still done, but FFA is very rarely done. That is what is my observation. And so I would like everybody here in the panel to, and also Rajiv, to put a little this thing on this particular aspect. Yes, aspect. Yes.
I agree with you, sir. I fully agree with you. The FFA indication in a choroidal neovascular membrane has drastically reduced. Only some cases of RAP lesions where you want to do, and when there is a coexisting other pathologies you want to do, but OCTA is today the OCT and OCTA are the investigations which gives us nearly all the information we are looking at.
Absolutely, I agree. Because what you are saying is, I think this is one disease at least where it has made a remarkable difference. It may not be so with our other diabetic retinopathy and vascular occlusions and so many other things. There still probably we have to do fundus fluorescein angiography. But here, definitely, the title which has been put by Vinay and Sarang as well as Prabhat is very appropriate. That at least if we have a OCT and OCTA, maybe very, very, very rarely, as already you pointed out, we'll need angiography. So that is the topic, which in fact, the basic, which was the title of the topic. We can, of course, discuss the other aspects. So what is the feeling of Dr. Sarang and Dr. Vinay here? Yeah.
Actually, I had a question for Rajiv. Rajiv, with all the attempts at trying to understand the appearance of the membranes, the vascular membranes on OCT, do you think they're going to help us to reduce the number of injections or to target therapy in a more focused manner? Is there something that's going to help to improve the visual outcomes in a sense for these patients?
Visual outcomes, I agree with you, it will definitely help, but I don't think it will reduce the number of injections. We may be monitoring them more properly and the right time injecting. See, because we don't want a under treatment. Whenever you get a fibrosis in a case of a choroidal neovascular membrane, actually it's under treatment. Or if you are getting atrophy, it is a over treatment. So we don't want this under and over treatment. And that is one of the reasons you would like to intervene at the right time, understand the recurrences more. It can probably, as I told you, some of the works we can, it may act as a predictive tool rather than in treat and extend. If we are on a patient on a treat and extend and you want to inject probably that may lower our threshold for treatment if some more evidence come. But I don't think that will lead to a reduction in the burden of treatment. That's a thing. It will probably increase the burden because we will be treating more.
All right. And also, there is a normal scanning that needs to be done, that you go through all the layers. And because the neovascular AMDs may be at different levels, is there then a possibility that you do something that goes beneath the retinal epithelium, retinal pigment epithelium, and you do a scan that goes just above the retinal? Should that be a normal scan pattern for patients with neovascular AMD, so that you don't miss out on the on-face appearance?
Yes, definitely. You need to take both the slab, and majority of them machines have the inbuilt scans which cover many of these. So like ORCC, choriocapillaries and outer, so it does cover many of them. But sometimes it's good idea to you may have, because as I told you, this SHREM, the activity may be in between the things, you may miss it. So look at the video, you will definitely not miss that.
All right. And there was another slide where you showed that, in a cross-sectional kind of axial scans, you see the hotspots. How can you actually increase the clinical utility of those hotspots in the cross-sectional scans?
Yeah, so these are hyperreflective foci, which is in DME, it has got a different significance. In each disease, people are looking at differently, but in neovascular AMD, if you get these hotspots, these are actually signs of activity. And if it's a plain type 1 or a type 2 membrane and you are getting these hyperreflective dots, foci, this is actually a sign of activity. So you need to treat based on that. And if there is no fluid there, you need to be very closely monitoring them. Definitely the fluid, it is about to come. However, in a case where you get to see these hyperreflective spots along with CME, along with the other thing, that it reflects actually the type 3 membrane. So this is one of the diagnostic criteria for a type 3 CNV.
Thank you. Dr. Mangat, would you like to take up the question that's on the control panel?
Okay, where?
There's a Dr. Kashinath Shenoy has asked a question.
Yeah.
If you press on the questions, it will
do OCTA after treatment of OCT only.
How often you will do OCT after treatment or OCT only? Okay. I think Rajiv, would you like to?
Yeah. So actually, if you have a OCTA, better to get a OCTA at each visit. Because as I told you, so that's how we are doing now. Only when the fluid is not going and you are suspecting some other things, you want to. So we had angioplex before, so I used to get an angioplex in each of my case on each visit. But now, because we have a SSOCTA, I get a SSOCTA. So when you are looking at, you want to see a little deeper, you want to rule out other diseases. You are not when the fluid is not going, your first thing you will think is a change in your diagnosis, whether you're dealing with PCV or something else. There you go to a SSOCTA. But I would suggest, if you have a OCTA on your each follow-up visit, better to do a OCTA rather than doing a plain OCT, because that comes in OCT by default you will get it.
yes.
Yeah, that's true. But most of the people, as yet, they may not have OCTA. So that is what is happening. They have mostly OCT. So even if you don't have a OCTA, at this time, you can do most of the management of neovascular AMD with the OCT, and you'll be absolutely fine if you repeat your on OCT only. But if you have OCTA, as Rajiv said, I think it definitely adds so many things. We learn many things, like Rajiv talked about formation of those early loops and things like that. Maybe there'll be time we'll be managing these cases early, as he mentioned, maybe we'll have a better outcome. We may have lesser progression, maybe. So we'll have so many things which we are watching, we are looking at, and even other things which he talked about, so that we are learning. So at this time, perhaps nobody is treating just based on OCTA. We are learning that part purely on OCTA. So I think that we have to understand. So OCT will be very, very important. But if you have OCTA, definitely it adds on. That's the way I would say.
Are there any more questions from the audience? This is a really new topic, and so it's a challenge for us to not only understand but to think of acquiring an OCTA and implementing it into our practice. But there is a sense that this is the future that is happening now, and that all of us will at some stage need to understand this. Just as I remember in those early days, 30 years, 35 years back, when fluorescein angiography first came in, and there was so much excitement and there were so many books and articles to understand. So I'd encourage all viewers to ask questions. Yeah, Dr. Atul Ursikar is here, and Dr. Mangat, could you take up this, moderate this question?
Okay. Okay, Dr. Atul Ursikar has asked, how significant is the difference between swept source and spectral domain technology for OCTA? Rajiv, would you like to?
Even your spectral domain OCTA are pretty good. We have been using for years, for the last couple of years now. Swept source adds value, especially in PCV, and more importantly, because these gives a larger scan, a longer scans. So no, even in angioplex, we used to create a montage, but here you get even 12 millimeter large. So especially it has now paved way in diabetic retinopathy in a big extent, like looking at capillary non-perfusion or neovascularization. So in AMD, I would suggest it's only when there is a doubt about PCV or some cases where you want to, where there is an edge of swept source OCTA. Otherwise, spectral domain OCTA should be very fine.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. I think both do very well. And as far as the neovascular AMD is concerned, you may not need really to manage such a case. In addition, a swept source. Obviously, we are having more and more swept sources, OCTs coming in. Maybe as already mentioned by Rajiv, we have these better images, as well as because these are faster. So we get more scans, maybe some of things like he mentioned about PCV, we can probably see better. Maybe we are able to see more cases, make out those polyps or branching vascular network. That is possible. But otherwise, it will not make a huge difference at this time. Absolutely, I agree.
I think probably we can also discuss. We can also discuss the protocol whenever a patient is coming to us. Maybe I feel that in cases which are resistant, there you would be more inclined eventually after a few months to go in and do some invasive tests. Probably at the first go, the way protocol used to be a few years back, that you do a baseline OCT as well as FFA ICG, and then go ahead and treat. So maybe in select cases, you would not like to do invasive tests at the first go, and eventually if the patient is getting more resistant to the injections or not responding, in those cases at a certain point in time, you would like to do invasive tests to just know what's happening in the retinal and choroidal level. What do you think, sir? Rajesh, sir?
I agree with you. I agree, Sarang. So ICG or doing an angiogram, usually not at first visit, but as I told you, couple of injections here. Unlike DME, where you wait for 3-4 injections and decide. Here, even 1 or 2 injections, if you are not seeing the effect, you definitely want to revisit your diagnosis. That why the fluid, is there something which I have missed? those are the cases definitely you want to do. And rightly, as you mentioned, in a resistant case, you definitely would like to do all imaging modalities.
I think
And of course,
very good question, and we have to know more about it. Mostly these days, what we do about neovascular AMD, we will take a fundus picture. We will take a fundus picture and do OCT. That is what is a standard, I would say, at this time. And we are able to manage most of them with this. Even if sometimes we have a, say, small hemorrhage coming up somewhere, so that you will see also otherwise, but you will not miss comparing with the last picture of fundus. So that is another activity which we have not even talked here. So I'm just saying, because AMD could be a little different ball game. So maybe angiography we are doing rarely, as already said. Maybe if we have ICG, maybe ICG may be required, because we do see PCV more often in our country. And but otherwise, these two modalities, they do very well. But in case you have, along with it, what we are talking today, OCTA, I think we have to learn so much. We can discuss so much about it. Right from, Rajiv talked about subclinical. You see, if you have seen that subclinical, now we call it MNV, or so what is going to happen? It's definitely going to lead, as well as you have to instruct the patient very clearly that it is coming. He said 1 in 5 in a 1 year in a study. So I think it's not small. Many of them are going, that means into having ultimately fluid or exudation. So they need treatment. So I think we'll have a time where we'll be able to treat them very early, get better results. That is what we are looking at. So many things newer which are happening. And this concept of subclinical CNV is absolutely very exciting, because they don't show anything on structural OCT. Whatever you may have, they'll have absolutely no fluid or no exudation there. So many things we're going to have. That is what I feel down the line. And of course, there may be a time we may be treating these neovascular AMD more on the basis of OCTA. It may happen, because they do give us that entire network which we are trying to, after all, manage. That is what. But that will happen. That will take time. I am reminded of our own, what you also mentioned, Rajiv, when we had one of the first OCTs of the country in PGI. You know, we go into historical things, and that is what is very important sometimes. And you see how much we learned. We had to learn by ourselves. There was no even a book or something which could teach. And that's how we came out with the book also those days, which even got translated into other language. So what I'm saying is, we are at that stage. We have to learn. If we have a tool, we must learn and must keep on doing it. Maybe somebody would get a better idea of treating these neovascular AMD early, or even retreating them, as you mentioned about new loops, whether that would become a indication, although we are looking at fluid only at this time. We have not changed really on the OCTA. And there's a question here, I think we would like to take
Dr. Yogendra. Yeah. This question is by Dr.
Yes.
Yogendra O.
I think there are two
how
questions.
Reliable compared to FFA are the signs of activity on OCTA?
OCTA, yes.
Raman. Yeah, so I would say not. Yeah, FFA definitely, to be always, I feel FFA is the gold standard. But today, all the studies, they don't compare with FFA. The studies which, if you go through the OCTA signs of activity, they are all comparing it with a structural OCT, presence of fluids. So as compared to FFA, I'm not sure. Definitely it would be same, because as I told you, when you compare OCT and OCTA, the sensitivity is 100%. So it is definitely, because those studies where the OCT capacity was looked at for CNVM, they compared with FFA. But now it will be all the papers which will be comparing OCTA with OCT. And Sarang, just another thing about ICG, just I wanted to add, when you are suspecting PCV, you'd still like to do a ICG because there is a role of combination therapy, and treatment of PDT is still not based on OCTA or OCT. It is based on the ICG leakages. Definitely, there is a role at some place where you may need to do ICG.
Yes, very true. I agree. I think FFA as such was never used for treatment because you see that's where the problem is. You look at we have majority of our cases having type 1 membranes, what we called earlier occult. They were so difficult to diagnose on FFA. You remember, I mean, we had so much of description and they were getting confused with so many other things. And here, once you had this OCT and then on top of OCTA, I think this became just a very simple thing to diagnose. So I think as far as angiography is concerned, that's not really something which we are looking at this time. As Rajiv have already mentioned, we are looking at structural OCT. We are looking at OCTA features. That is what would help us. Absolutely, that's there. Anybody else here would like to add anything? I think there is a question also. Yes. I think
there is a question by Dr. Atul Ursekara. Yeah. Any novel imaging findings seen in CNV or OCT findings which are clinically useful?
Any novel imaging findings seen in choroidal vascular OCTA findings which are clinically useful?
Yeah, so I think on your diagnosis, OCT, OCTA are same, like once you have diagnosed and started treating. On treatment, when you are getting, you see the fluids have disappeared, but you are still seeing that membrane which is there. Try to follow up and see the pattern of this membrane, whether it is changing over a period of time. If you start seeing these new loops which are forming, that is an indication that probably there may be activity which may come in now. So that is one. And again, as we discussed about the subclinical, if you find a subclinical, you don't find any fluid in a treatment naive patient, and you find the network, tend to call them more often because they may develop in next 1 year. So I think these are the 2-3 things which at present from OCTA we get some ideas about findings.
I think one more thing which I would like to add here is we have seen it now. If you have a small MNV, we call it now, we don't call it CNV, it will usually disappear once we have given injection. That is what happened if it is small. Most of the time that's what happened, which is so dramatic. In fact, which is so dramatic that you don't even see it. And it may reappear again if you are following these cases in a little different way subsequently, may not be the same way as it was earlier. So not many things which are seen, which otherwise you never expect. But this happens often, I have seen at least, with small MNVs. And they would just disappear after the treatment. And they may reappear again. And little bit, they would be different than what they were earlier. So many interesting things which we observe. And maybe they'll have a role down the line to play. Once we are learning more about such phenomena. Yes. I think these are all the questions which we have here, and
maybe Dr. Mangat can conclude, give his concluding remarks.
Okay. Well, I think Rajiv has made the job so easy. He talked about every aspect of OCTA in neovascular AMD. He touched right from the basic, that how in the beginning OCTA helps us to, diagnose neovascular AMD. I think this is first time that we are really seeing this kind of a network, and he nicely showed about type 1, type 2, as well as about the type 3, that is the RAP, and how they are seen. And that is the way, and he very clearly mentioned about also that now they are named with the new classification system as MNVs. So we'll have to talk about them as MNVs rather than CNVMs. I think that is for everyone's information, and they can go to that particular article which is published this year only in the beginning in ophthalmology, where they have changed and the consensus statement. So, and also then subsequently he talked about what are the features which showed activity, like halo, like new loops, like changing the pattern and becoming different. So many things he talked. Those we are learning, that we will know in future whether how they are going to help us. And he also talked about some things that we get sometimes problems. These are the projection artifacts which can create a problem, as well as sometimes we have these issues where because of various reasons we confuse that this may be a membrane but may not be a membrane really. So all these things are very important for us to look at. And he mentioned repeatedly that we can't do it in isolation. It has to be looked at in a compositive way with the structural OCT. That is the way we will know that exactly what is going on also on OCTA. And OCTA, he also mentioned, helps in diagnosis of PCV, especially maybe those are the cases when we were talking about these spectral domain and about the swept source. Maybe the swept source may help more number of cases pick up those things. And lastly, he gave the concept of what is subclinical CNV, which is very exciting. And if we have on OCTA a subclinical CNV, which he very clearly mentioned has no exudation of fluid when the OCT or in the OCT that time, I think these are the cases we need to very closely follow, look at them, and if they develop anything and patient has also to be told, maybe we will have in future much earlier treatment and maybe better outcome for such cases. So many things are coming. I mean, we are also looking at, I don't know whether how it will be those home-based OCTs and self-monitoring. So many things are coming. I think we have exciting times, especially when we are going to treat many of these cases, especially because that will be very exciting for elderly people, those who have problem moving, coming, and if they will be able to afford, that will help in a big way. They'll just be coming in and going out for injection. That's it. That's it. Which will be so convenient and also getting things in time. I think so many exciting developments are happening. So with this, I thank again Rajiv, especially for such a nice, excellent talk. He summarized all aspects. And of course, Vinay here, Prabhat, and Saran for putting up a great webinar on a subject which is very, very exciting. Me, at least, I feel this is a most exciting area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Prabhat, are we done?
Yes.
Yeah, the broadcast is over.
So we have to stop the this thing only.
We have to. Okay. Then we can't chat you up because the broadcast is still on. But
yes.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, and thank you very much, Dr. Mangat. It was great to listen to both of you, and all of us learned a tremendous amount from both of you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir. Have a nice day.
It was a great learning experience for me personally, and interaction, great interaction. Thank you. Thank you to all the those questions which came from Atul and others. They were very, very good questions. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Take care.